Welcome to Heffron on History. Today we're going to talk about abolition and women's rights. And the essential question today is, how was the abolition movement a training ground for women's rights? This time on Heffron on History. Before we can begin our discussion about abolition and women's rights, we first have to understand the concept of the women's sphere. There's the men's sphere and the women's sphere, and these are the places and the things that men and women have done for thousands of years in society, right? Men go out into the world, men earn a living, men run professions, men run businesses, men work out on the farm. Women, on the other hand, are at home and they are taking care of the home, and they are cooking and they are cleaning and they are sewing and they are taking care of the kids. That is the women's sphere. Up until the abolition movement, abolition is getting rid of slavery. Women didn't have any part in politics. Women just did not get involved in politics. That was the men's sphere. However, women were very much involved in the abolition movement, and what that ended up doing is it was their first organized enterprise in order to be involved in politics. And once they got involved in the abolition movement, that very quickly turned into the women's rights movement as well. So we're going to take a look at that. All right, so when we're talking about abolition, we have already discussed life in the North. We have already discussed life in those New England colonies and those middle colonies. We've discussed life in the southern colonies. We've discussed life in the southern states. So we have slavery in the South. We have industrialization in the North. We have the abolition movement slowly picking up steam as the years progress. And it's really going to start with the Quakers in Pennsylvania, 1776. They are going to start the process of eliminating slavery in the northern states. They are a peace-loving folks, and they're going to use that literally and say, well, you know, if we're so peaceful, we just cannot have slavery anymore. And they're going to kind of lead the charge in getting rid of slavery. The year is 1831, and a man by the name of William Lloyd Garrison. William Lloyd Garrison is going to publish a newspaper. He is a very much outspoken abolitionist. He's one of the first big names in abolition, getting rid of slavery. And his newspaper, The Liberator, is going to go a long way to getting the word out to people all across the country that maybe perhaps slavery is not such a good thing and maybe we should do something about it. We have a couple of former slaves who are going to play a pivotal role in the abolition movement. Frederick Douglass and Sojourner Truth. And they're both going to go around the country and they're going to speak at anti-slavery movements. Whenever there's a meeting in town where people are going to be discussing the abolition movement, chances are pretty good you're going to see one of those two people. Frederick Douglass is a very eloquent, well-spoken man who has a wonderful experience about his escape from slavery, and he wrote an autobiography which is circulating all across the country, and people flock to come see Frederick Douglass speak. Sojourner Truth, again, she's a former slave, and these two people are telling the folks at these anti-slavery meetings, these abolition meetings, just how bad things actually are for slaves. What you have to understand is a lot of folks in the North have never met a slave. They've never seen what slavery was like. Maybe they just simply don't have an opinion on slavery. How women are getting involved in this. If I am going to an abolition anti-slavery meeting, this is a moral situation. A lot of times it's religion-based, and because of that, perhaps I invite my wife to come along with. That's how women are going to get involved in this movement initially, is the men are going to invite the women. Hey, why don't you come along with me and you can be part of this. We could use a woman's opinion on this matter, and what would you like to have happen here, right? So two of the first very outspoken abolitionists are two women. And they are Angelina and Sarah Grimke. The Grimke sisters are going to go around, and they are going to be firebrands in the abolition movement. They are going to be very outspoken, and they are going to go to, again, all the anti-slavery and the abolition meetings, and they're going to talk about how the evils of slavery. So women are involved in the anti-slavery movement, right? They are involved in abolition, and at some point the women are going to start to kind of compare their lives to slaves' lives. I mean, I want you to think about something. This is the concept, right? A woman is the property of her father until she gets married. And if you think about the American wedding ceremony, who gives this woman's hand in marriage? He is literally giving ownership to her husband. She is the property of her husband. She is in many ways treated much like a slave. Perhaps she doesn't have a whole lot of say in what happens in the home because her husband has the say. So women start to realize, maybe things aren't as peaceful as perhaps I would like them to be, and maybe I am treated much like a slave myself, and maybe women should start to also work towards some independence. So Angelina and Sarah Grimke are not just working in the abolition movement, they are also some of the pioneers in the women's rights movement. Angelina Grimke has a quote. I'm reading the quote here. "What can women do for the slave when she is herself under the feet of man and shamed into silence?" I have some experience with this personally because my parents are very old school. Whatever my father said, that was the law in the house, right? My mom did whatever my dad said. Us kids, we did whatever my dad said. My dad was like the master of the household, right? So I can really identify with this. How could somebody help others when they themselves are being treated like a second-class citizen, like you're under the direction of somebody else? I can certainly understand this. Two of the big names in the women's rights movement would be Lucretia Mott and Elizabeth Cady Stanton. They tend to be discussed together because they worked well together. They went to an anti-slavery movement convention, the World Anti-Slavery Convention. And there are not that many women there, and those that are attending cannot speak. They cannot have their opinions known. Right? Again, this is very much a women's rights kind of a thing, right? So they're at this anti-slavery abolition movement, and they are told, you can be here behind a curtain in the balcony where you can't be seen and you can't be heard. However, they could hear what was going on, and they could see what was going on, and they learned the politics of getting involved, what was required in order to push a movement forward, right? So this was a training ground. This is how they learned how to work on the women's rights movement. These two women then went on to organize the Seneca Falls Convention, and the Seneca Falls Convention created the Declaration of Sentiments. It is modeled after the Declaration of Independence, and it basically says where if you substitute men for King George, it's pretty much the same kind of thing, right? These are all the things that men have been doing over the years that are oppressive and that are tyrannical, and we are trying to escape this tyranny, and they are simply substituting men for King George. Although Elizabeth Cady Stanton is not a very good speaker, she's a very good writer, but she's not a very good speaker. Eventually, another woman would come along, Susan B. Anthony, who would then take this women's rights movement to the next level, and she would travel around the country and she would speak. So a lot of times, the women's rights folks and the abolition folks are the same folks. And as time went on, once abolition is complete, right? Once the 13th Amendment to the Constitution is in the books, these women start turning it around and working toward women's rights. It's going to take a couple generations yet before women get the right to vote.